Now you're ready?
Welcome back, friends.
Hi.
Screen, please.
What screen? Oh.
Our whole topic screen that we're going off of. That'd be nice.
I didn't know what this meant.
Like switch screens.
Gotcha.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Beanstalk Podcast, where we talk about everything travel.
Sharing first-hand travel advice and getting to the bottom of real-life experiences in the hopes to inspire you to get out there yourself.
So, we are in Burgos, where we left off last time.
Yeah!
Which is currently at 287 kilometers in from the start of the Camino, or 178 miles.
Yep.
And we will be moving 181 kilometers more to León, or 113 miles.
Yep.
Good.
What? I was trying to jump in there and say something, but you were trudging on, so go on to your next one.
All right. So this is this is going to be day 17 on the Camino, which is from Burgos, and we're going to Hontanas, which is 31.5 kilometers, or 19.6 miles. And at this point in the whole route, we are on the meseta.
So the meseta, they say, is the part of the journey where you go inward. Your body is already accustomed to
really
walking.
Just implode. You go inward.
You just go inward and you're like...
Your body shrivels up.
No, so what I mean by going inward is your body is accustomed to walking the long miles every day, and basically, rather than think about your aches and pains and your body, you're thinking about a lot of stuff within yourself that you might need to work through. So this way, you can get pretty deep into thought or emotions and start working through that stuff. I know I cried several days just walking, because you really do start bringing up, past issues that maybe you haven't dealt with at all.
It's not even like you bring it up. It's just certain things just come up.
No, yeah, just like bubbles up to the surface.
It's not like you think about, I need to work through this certain issue. It's just certain memories and just hard things you've gone through in your past just come up to your mind, and you just work through them.
You have a lot of time to think.
Yeah, because, like she said, you're really accustomed to walking every day at this point, so that's not the mental, where your mind is at, as well as it's still pretty in a sense, but it's not as scenic as far as, you're walking through beautiful forest. It's very
huge
open.
Mountains. It's like very open, very rural.
And it's just for the most part pretty flat. So you're not thinking about huge mountains you got to cover. You're just walking and working through stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So we were leaving Burgos, and we had said that it rained most of the time we were there. The rain was starting to let up a little bit, but it was still raining on our way out. We got to a spot where it had cleared up, and we were going to be descending into a smaller village. And right at this part, it overlooked the entire valley that this village sat in. And for me, it was a pretty special spot, and it felt to me like it encompassed Spain. It just felt like Spain to me, very authentic. And so before I had left, and I don't think I mentioned this in the previous episodes, I was seeing a shaman before we left, and she had given me several, actually not just several, but a dozen or more crystals.
Pounds of crystals.
Pounds of crystals that I was carrying for...
It sounds very drug.
It does sound very... Well, whatever.
I had pounds of crystal.
Oh, yeah, no, not crystal meth, no. These were blessed crystals, like the stones, which were each given a designated country that they were blessed for. And I wanted to bury one in each country that I was going to be traveling to. So basically just, leaving a sacred stone in certain places. So this was the moment where I had buried that stone for Spain. And it was a pretty special moment. And I enjoyed that I was given this task and could do it for the people of the world, as well as the shaman who gave them to me. That was pretty cool.
So, we basically were still heading for Hontanas, and then before we got to this other small town of Hornillos, which was a very small little village. It just felt like it was ancient, like the few buildings that were there had just been there for centuries. It felt like the houses were built were like mud packed houses, and you could see like hay coming out of it, as well as like sticks and rocks.
And they were crumbling.
Very crumbly, like deteriorating. Almost like a heavy rain could have just like, deteriorate and melt away all of, the whole town, it felt like. But it was really cool. It also, there was not a lot of, you didn't see almost anyone, I don't know, just walking through the town. So it felt very ghost townish at the same time. Yeah, like a ancient, Wild West sort of scenario, but with a Spanish flair to it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I liked that little town, but it was definitely a passerby. You just walked right through it pretty quickly. It
only took, you could see from one end to the other, basically.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I think once we left that town, we kind of started seeing the dark clouds roll in, and we're going, oh shit.
Yeah, they started forming on the horizon.
So this was a pretty open area. Like we said, it's pretty much rural ground all around you, and basically farmland as far as the eye can see. I remember we hit a pretty big stretch of just mud and muck. And it took a long time for us to get through it.
It was so slow going. It was like sticky mud too, where it would just stick to the bottom of your shoes. So your shoes would weigh a ton.
Yeah.
And just trying to get the mud off, you'd try to like kick it off almost. But you have to be careful too, because that can totally ruin your knees.
And your legs. It's just like legs, pulls. You can pull muscles. You can just really like strain different parts of your body if you're doing any sort of unnecessary physical movement that can, weigh on you.
It was a struggle, and it went for quite a while.
And we saw others struggling too, because the Camino isn't just for walkers. There's people who do it on bicycle, and that section of it, I was like, oh, I'm so glad we're not on a bike, because we saw so many bicyclists with their bikes just tipped over and like having a really hard time in this mud. It was deep.
It was rough, and all the while in the distance, the clouds are just getting darker. You can start hearing thunder cracking, and it's starting to like drizzle a little bit.
Yeah.
And we're just trying our best to get to the end before this turns, from bad to worse.
We knew we had a certain amount of kilometers to do before we got to the next town where we would be able to find somewhere to stay, but we didn't know if we were just going to get hit by this crazy storm that was starting to come.
It was just getting darker and closer.
Yeah, it was ominous. But we finally, we start seeing, well, actually, we didn't even see the town.
Because it's kind of dipped down.
It was almost like the town dipped down over this ridge, so really you're walking this and going, when is it gonna end? And I can't even see the next village, and
you just can't move quick because of the mud, and
the whole time it was really crazy how it happened, but we almost stayed in the eye of the storm, it felt like, the entire time, because there were dark clouds all around us, and the wind would pick up, but it didn't start like fully storming at this point.
No, I mean, it was drizzly, but it wasn't like raining.
No.
But it was, you could tell it was just about to start at any moment.
Yeah, and then right as we see the little dip into this town, we hear this huge
crack of lightning.
Yeah, crack of lightning or thunder. And it was like, oh my God, we just barely made it into this town.
Just in time.
Before it got crazy. So we were pretty grateful that we didn't have to put up with too much more of that storm. And I'm pretty scared of lightning. I had an experience when I was younger. Living in Colorado, we would get hit with electrical storms all the time. And so there was a guy that I had seen, and he was walking out in a field, and I said, well, that guy's not too smart to be walking out in a field during an electrical storm. And later, come to find out, he got hit by lightning and died. So I take that with me when I'm around lightning, and it freaked me out. What?
So yeah, we made it to the albergue, and which was a really cool one too. You basically walked into like a restaurant, sort of cafe bar, and then the sleeping quarters were, upstairs and down the hall. It's almost like they had a separate sleeping quarters that were on the roof, which was huge. So it was like a small house on a house. Yeah, we checked in and got set up and did the usual of, washing our clothes with all the while, the storm had hit at that point. It was raining and coming down pretty hard.
So the next day we headed to Boadilla, which from the town that we slept in, it was 28.7 kilometers or 17.8 miles. And it would have been the 18th day that we were on the Camino.
So today, a lot of what I was dealing with during the walk was a lot of reflecting. I thought a lot about my grandparents' property in basically the forest of Oregon, how much I liked it there, and as well as the property that we had and I grew up in Northern California, times with family and with my friends, and a lot of just my youth. And kind of just was a validating thought of why I am the way I am. So just a lot of like self-reflecting and almost like putting all the pieces together of my life is what it felt like. From
this walk, I remember I just was really into the scenery. I remember walking past a pretty, I guess I could call him like a weathered pilgrim, but he looks like he's been walking this his whole life, and just skin like a leather catcher's mitt and long beard and hair, and you just really wonder, what his story is, how long he's been walking it, where he's been, where he's going, just I wish I had the gift of like knowing somebody's story. So there's a long stretch along the road where just to the left-hand side there are these big old trees, and it almost had like a Tuscan style feel to it. And then along the right-hand side of the road, there's just fields upon fields of wildflowers. And in the distance, the city that you're or not city, but the village that you're walking into, there's a big old castle up on the hill. And so this town is called Castro Jerez, and just after it, there is a really big incline that you can see from miles away, and you're just going, oh my God, that is pretty steep. That's going to be quite the work to get up that hill.
You're going straight for it because you can see the trail just leading right to it.
Yeah, and there's no avoiding that sucker, so I think that we had, our bodies were pretty accustomed to walking at this point, and we felt pretty fit. So I think the two of us decided before we hit that hill that we were going to try to go up it without any breaks. So
yeah, we had kind of pumped ourselves up.
Yeah.
Before getting to it, saying, all right, we're going to try to do this without stopping, all in one go.
Mm-hmm.
You ready? And then we kept getting closer and it kept getting bigger, but we're like, we're still going to do it, right?
We're going to keep doing it, okay.
Non-stop.
Yeah.
And,
We did it!
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. It was quite the accomplishment to get to the top of that big hill without huffing and puffing. So.
Yeah, it felt good.
Yeah, totally did. And there was a really great view of the city behind you after you got up there.
Yeah, so then we made it to, eventually made it to Boadilla, which is where we had stopped for the day, which was a really nice albergue. It had like a big courtyard area with just like this green grass lawn. There's a big washing station. There were just seats kind of strewn about everywhere.
There was a pool.
Yeah, there was a pool. Just really welcoming and relaxing. It was all kind of gate. I don't want to say gated, but like bordered with like a Spanish style wall, almost like a small fort.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just felt really enclosed and
cozy.
It doesn't. Yeah, more cozy, not enclosed. But yeah, it was just cozy and comfortable and very warm. So, and then we had the big dinner where it was communal. So everyone came into one room and it was just, the set meal and everyone's just kind of talking about their day and sharing stories and
meeting new people.
Yeah. There were lots of pilgrims in there and there was just bottomless wine too. And so a few people were getting a bit loud and drunk.
Because I think they have they're either carafes or just bottles that they refill.
They're like clay jugs, I think.
Oh, yeah, they did have clay jugs.
They're like clay jugs. And
they're just like, here you go. Oh, you're done? All right, let's fill up another clay pot and put it right in front of you.
Even when I feel like everyone was done eating, they were still bringing them out if they were empty. So
yeah, totally.
I was kind of taking advantage, I guess. And I even filled my water bottle with wine too to take back to the room. And
Carl's getting drunk.
I was in the mood. And so yeah, I took it back to the room we were in. And there was a window there, this was on the second floor, that overlooked this whole courtyard area. And there wasn't a screen or anything on the window. It was just, open window. And the sun was setting in the distance. And I was just drinking this wine and writing in my journal. And it was quite a moment.
Sounds like a moment.
Yeah. And then from there, the next day, so this would be day 19, which was from there, Boadilla, where we were going to Carrion de los Condes, which was a 25.1 kilometer or 15.6 mile stage.
Yeah, and it was a pretty cool walk outside of this town. It was all along this canal, and I do recall that there were fishermen all along this waterway, and they had lines in, and we were wondering, what the hell are they fishing for in a canal? And I think we had seen them start pulling out crayfish. So these little, I don't know what they call them there, but little like crawdads or crayfish or, these little crustaceans. And there was also a very out of the ordinary sound, one that I had never heard of a creature or critter or whatever the fuck it was. I have no idea. But it sounded like a bird mixed with a frog.
Yeah, it was super weird.
So I never caught a glimpse of it because it was in the water, so I'm assuming it was a frog, but its call or whatever noise it made sounded like a cross between a bird and a frog.
It's almost like one was trying to learn the other's call to like feed on it or something. But
it always happened right at the same time. So you're like, well, it's the same thing, but is it a bird?
Yeah.
Or is it a frog? I have no idea.
Couldn't find what was making the noise, but it was
no idea.
So it was the only place we'd heard it too.
Yeah.
And I think even at the end of the day, people were like, "Did you hear that back then?" And we were like, "Yeah, we
what
totally
was
heard
that?
the frog bird, and we didn't know if we were just crazy or."
Yeah, totally weird.
Yeah. Once we did get to the end of the stage, which I was pretty glad to because I was a bit hungover, we did run into Gemma, and she had been going with her friends that were meeting her back in Burgos, who were some friends they were from England, but it was a couple, David and Amber, And we just randomly stumbled across them as we popped into a restaurant. They were already at a table. I think they just finished their meal. It was a bit awkward at first because I guess there was some sort of past history relationship sort of thing with Gemma and the guy David, who was now there with his current girlfriend Amber, and
Yeah.
we just felt right off the bat that Gemma felt different.
Well, of course you're going to feel slightly awkward if you're hanging out with your ex-boyfriend and his new girlfriend. So there's no judgment or anything, but yeah, the energy was definitely different from Gemma, and we were like, okay, well, I think we'll go.
Yeah, it was just awkward at first, but
but later, it wasn't, so.
Yeah. It was just at that moment. I think, too, that we just kind of, like, walked in and saw them. We're like, hey, and it was, we hadn't planned on meeting. I think they were still getting accustomed to a lot of things, so.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, like, bad timing. And
yeah. But we had heard of a albergue. Albergues are pilgrim hostels, and I don't think we've mentioned that before. We just albergues, yeah. And people are probably like, what the fuck is that?
Hostel specifically for pilgrims.
Yeah, so they're a lot cheaper, and they're, more simplistic and just designed for pilgrims. But this, and I'm going to just say it, I don't care if it's a word for a whorehouse because it just sounds like the word that it should be. But
even though that's not where we were.
Even though we weren't at a brothel. It's nunnery, so it was another nunnery. And I believe they're a little bit cheaper, the ones that you stay at that are either run by monks or nuns, or I don't know how many were run by monks. Probably not many.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I think mostly the nuns.
Yeah.
As far as the ones we stayed at anyway.
Yeah, so we were walking around trying to find this albergue, and we finally found it, and it was getting pretty hot, and we were getting really tired, and
my feet were killing me.
Yeah, and we get into this albergue, and there were these two little nuns that opened the door, and they welcomed us right in, and were super friendly to us. But also, I know that they kept pointing out Carl's tattoos, and like, oh, I don't know, they were kind of intrigued by them. But they showed us to our room, and they just felt very warm and welcoming, and they had a very motherly vibe going to them.
Yeah, I was a bit nervous at first because of pointing out the tattoos, and I was like, oh, are they just going to, like, judge the shit out of me? Or just, like,
and we're not.
But then it subsided quickly with just their warm...
No.
Yeah, feeling.
It did not feel at all judgmental or anything.
No.
They were just very loving and very open, and... but we did run into Jacobi there, and we had sat and chatted with her for just a second, I think, but it was more of just like, oh, hey, you're here. But when we got into our rooms, I remember the beds were really squeaky, and I was like... But
they weren't bunk beds, which was nice. They were all single beds, because...
That's true.
Bunk beds suck, because if someone up top or below you, wherever you end up getting, is moving around a lot, it just shakes the whole bed. So at least you had your own bed.
That's true, and especially if they're squeaky. It sucks getting up to the top, and you're like... and like trying to not... make a whole lot of sound.
The other, your bunkmate.
Yeah. But I remember vividly, right in front of my bed was a...
hanged painting.
Yeah, a hanging portrait of Jesus. He had long, flowy, blondish brown hair, like super dark long eyelashes, and it was in front of this beachscape with like an abandoned boat, and the lighting was just right. It was like this total dreamy Jesus above my bed.
It's like an 80s glamour photo.
Yes!
Where it had like this glowy,
It was awesome. I was like, what is this? These nuns are, they're like, oh, yes, my dreamy Jesus on the wall. It was pretty awesome. But yeah, I think I even snapped a photo of it.
Yeah, it had to be captured. It was so... I want to say ridiculous. I don't know, but
it was just funny. Hilarious. It was a great thing to wake up to and go to bed to.
Yeah, we stayed safe from the caring watch of Dreamy Jesus.
Yes.
But yeah, at this point, because I think it was the last couple days that like my feet were just killing me at the end of every day, and I noticed that the insoles of my shoes had worn down, especially where the pads of my feet were, to where it had gone all the way through the insoles, and my insoles were just deteriorating, and I needed extra padding because the lack of the padding was just, it was killing my feet.
Yeah, it was getting pretty bad. I remember just the end of the day, the last like 2K would always be such a struggle.
My feet were just pounding.
So we were wanting to look for a store where they sold insoles for your shoes just to get a teeny bit of extra cushion.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had found this one, and luckily they had, some pretty decent insoles.
Yeah. Probably due to the fact that a lot of people were wanting that at this point too.
Yeah.
It was at the stage where
it's just
flat. We're almost 3 weeks in. A lot of people's stuff are starting to, need to get replaced or need assistance with certain things.
Yeah, and so I remember, so my feet are pretty small. In the U.S., I wear a size 6.5. I did get a little bit larger of a boot just to accommodate the swelling of your feet. But I knew that the insoles were going to be too big, and I didn't currently have scissors. So the woman at the store was like, "Oh, I can cut them for you." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." But the shape of my shoes are different than your average shoe shape. So she just cut along the line, and it needed to come to a point where my big toe was. She didn't do that. So it left a pretty significant gap at the heel of my shoe, which later...
And at the toe, right?
No. Well, yeah, and at the toe, actually. Yeah, that's true.
I remember you complaining about how you could feel that every step.
Yeah, and so the back of that gap that it left just kept beating against my heel, and later on it created like a tri-blister. It was pretty brutal, and that was probably one of the... I guess that was pretty much the only blister that I got.
Mm-hmm.
I had like 2 other minuscule little baby toe blisters that went away in just a couple days, but the one on my heel stayed for at least a few days and had to be treated and lanced and all that stuff. So,
but I cut my own. I didn't feel comfortable because I don't know, every shoe's different, and I just used my old shredded insoles as a pattern and marked it with a pen and then cut it out, and mine fit perfect. And
lucky you!
I was very grateful to have some new insoles that helped out huge.
They were super nice. Just wish mine would have worked. I ended up leaving them on the trail, and hopefully someone else could have gotten use out of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so day 20, we were walking from Carrion, that last town, to Templarios. And that would have been 26.8K or 16.7 miles on this stretch.
Yeah, which was, for the most part, it was just a long, straight shot. There wasn't a whole lot of scenery, so it was just kind of a gravelly road, and you just kind of stayed straight and true and just kept walking down this road, and we ended up kind of syncing up with our pace with these younger group of kids. What was it, like 4 of them or something?
I don't know who you're talking about.
There were these younger guys from New York that were traveling as a group.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sometimes you sync up pace with certain individuals, and for me, these... After having our pace sync up with them, I was like, why can't I be walking faster or slower? I didn't really enjoy the
They were
company.
just kind of young, and I don't know, a lot of their we weren't. I mean, they weren't like bad people or anything.
No,
it's just,
not at all. Just the outlook. You could definitely feel the age difference because what they were talking about, I was like, I don't want to talk about this right now. It seems insignificant, and especially when you're going inward and having these deep, reflective walks. I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think they ended up stopping at one place to go to the bathroom, and we just wanted to keep going, honestly, just have them not included. Not that we disliked them, it just wasn't, we weren't meshing up, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we continued on. And we ended up getting to our albergue then in Templarios and checked in. And this was where we really connected with Jacoby as she was also at the same place. And she had a friend from somewhere in Europe. I want to say a Scandinavian country, but some guy named Adrian. And then we had met a middle-aged couple from Denmark who were super nice, Marianne and Per. Yeah, John from Adelaide was there, and so was our cheese lady. Have we described that yet?
Well...
Or was she dubbed that yet? Or was this like...
I'm not too sure.
I feel like that was later on.
I had her written down as the cheese lady, but I think the story...
I don't even know her name.
I don't either, but
she's just a cheese lady.
We walked with her a lot, or kept crossing paths with her a lot.
She was Dutch, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And, so the reason that she was deemed the cheese lady was that Monica had an experience with her where she had offered her a little bit of her cheese, and she ended up eating almost like all of Monica's cheese. So.
Yeah, she said, "Oh, well, can I have another piece? And can I have another? Well, can I just have the rest?" And she was like, "Okay." So she just basically just took her whole thing of cheese and
yeah.
Yeah,
but,
so...
she was really nice. Maybe crossed those
kind of an odd duck,
boundaries of social norms. But, yeah, so it was really nice meeting Marianne and Per, and they were super friendly people. And I just remember Marianne, she had a smile that was absolutely contagious.
And it was just, she smiled with her whole face.
Her entire face was her smile. Her eyes especially were... she was just a very
sweetest lady,
very personal person, and she, was just a sweetheart. And her husband, Per, was super friendly, a little bit more reserved, but they were two really, really nice people.
And they had walked previously, but I think they had broken up their previous journeys to the Camino, where they had done sections of it. So they would do certain stretches from A to B. And this was basically their return to the Camino to fill the gaps that they hadn't walked before.
They weren't able to take off enough time to complete the entire thing from start to finish. But yeah, we just so happened to meet them on this journey. That night after dinner, we had got a bottle of wine and went out to the patio, and we were hanging out with Jacoby a bit more and getting to know her a bit, and we had wine and cigarettes, and I think this probably is slightly maybe the moment where we were dipping back into smoking again. What? I'm just being honest.
No, but we were smoking since like the first night.
But it wasn't as consistent.
Oh, okay. We're actually buying cigarettes.
We were actually buying packs of
smoke.
Yeah, exactly. So both Carl and I had smoked when we were younger, and we had quit for. I know that I was
7 years.
I was going on 8 years, cigarette free. And then the first night in Paris, we're like, yeah, we'll have a cigarette. It's Paris. We're on vacation.
Well, then it was just like there's people out and they're smoking, and it's just a really socially inviting.
It is, very much so.
Thing. And
a lot of Europe and the rest of the world, for that matter, smoke.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I didn't see it as being a horrible thing to enjoy a cigarette while drinking a glass of wine after a long day's hike. And that was kind of like us bonding with Jacoby. And then, so we felt a real connection with her and kind of bonded over wine and cigarettes.
Yeah, it was a good night.
Yeah, it was a really good night.
once it came time for bed and we were all in, we heard some guys coming in, while we were already in bed, but they were coming in and they were just drunk and loud. I mean, there was no volume control at all as they were walking down the hall to their room. And then as they got in their room, they would just continually borderline yelling, just being drunk and having a great time too, but being freaking loud.
Yeah.
To where it was hard to go to sleep. And they were just partying in their room and having a good old time, but there was not a lot of respect for who was trying to get sleep. Yeah, I know the next morning was an instant where
I'm sorry, I'm trying to
remember,
really search my brain for this moment of these guys being loud.
You might have had your earbuds in and were asleep.
I was thinking I was either sound asleep or I had too much wine out on the patio and just totally conked out, because I am searching in my brain for this, and I have a pretty good memory, but I cannot remember this.
They were so loud.
Because we were on the bunk beds that were pretty high, and I felt like I was going to fall off because there was no railing on the side. So maybe I was petrified of that, and I just zoned out and just fell asleep or something.
Could be, but
I do not remember it.
I was definitely awake and
that's funny.
Could not avoid that.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we woke up, it was one of the mornings where you kind of roll over and you're like, oh, look at that. It's a little red bed bug. And you're like, son of a bitch. And you just squish it and it just explodes with blood.
Oh.
And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And then you'd search your body for where it suckled on you throughout the night.
Ew, suckled. That's a gross word.
That's how it felt. It felt gross.
Well, yeah, that is pretty gross. But yeah, one of the many glamorous events of the Camino is that
bed bugs.
You got to deal with bed bugs.
It's not frequent, but it does happen.
No.
But anyway, so this would have been day 21. So from Templarios, and we were heading to Casadilla de los Hermanos, which was a 26.7 kilometer stage or 16.6 miles. And pretty much from the start, we went and walked by this huge mound, almost a hill sort of thing.
It looked like from the back of it, I think it looked like a big hill.
Yeah.
Like a big mound.
But man-made, but huge,
Yeah.
And on the other side, as we rounded it, you saw these little doors and
windows
and stuff. And it's just, you're like, these are little hobbit homes.
Yeah, they were awesome.
Cool. Yeah, they're all really small too. So it was felt like a little kid's playground or something, but it looked like where people lived in at some point.
Yeah.
And we had run into Jacoby with her friend Adrian. Yeah, we just continued on. And
we were talking with Jacoby, and she was telling us that there is this green section. Our guidebook was pretty crummy.
We had given up our guidebook a while ago.
It was so shitty.
Because the distances weren't right.
The distances were off.
The towns weren't right.
Yeah.
The information just wasn't there.
They didn't have alternate routes on there, which there were alternate routes that maybe we would want to take. And so Jacoby had basically this guidebook that we've come to know as the Camino Bible. People call it the Book of John. We call it JB's. It's John Brearley's Camino guidebook. And he's got several of them. One of the French way, one of the Portuguese route, a few just maps and routes. And so,
and he updates them every year.
They're great.
To go along with, current albergues or different routes that have been started. So they're very helpful. They're in many languages. And accurate, too.
Yeah. So basically, many people have these in hand. Yeah. And she happened to have one. So she was telling us about this Roman route, which was one of the green routes in the book, or an alternate route that you can take that gets you off what was supposed to be the walk that day, just basically on the road. And if you've walked long distances, you know that walking just on the road and pavement kill your feet. Yeah. And so we wanted, we'll take a green route. We'll do anything to get off the road. Later we find out that this Roman road was big, unavoidable stones. It's almost like river rocks, but they're large, and there's no way to walk this road without just looking at your feet and where you step the entire time.
It was almost like you couldn't even... It was hard to take in the surroundings because you were literally watching where you were stepping every step. Because,
you couldn't look at anything else.
Yeah. And I remember after like hours of this, it was like, I feel like I haven't even looked up. I've just been looking at my feet, making sure I'm not going to break my ankle.
Yeah, basically. And so it was a 17-kilometer stretch, or 10.5 miles of this Roman road. And there wasn't much shade. There weren't any towns. And it was just pretty brutal. And I personally have kind of weak ankles. And so this wasn't good on my ankles at all. But so this day in particular, I was going through a lot of inward reflecting of my family. I think one of the main things that I was kind of working out was the fact that my parents are getting older, but not like old enough to start thinking about them passing on. But for me, this day was kind of like a reflection on that is going to happen someday, and I'm just going to have to deal with it. And so it was a really like big process of kind of letting go of my parents. And so I cried a lot that day, but it was good.
During the day, we had gotten through where a lot of people were staying, or calling it a day, which was a town or a city called Sahagun. And you kind of felt like you came in through the backside of it or something, because it was very industrial, very factory-like.
Yeah, it was not scenic at all.
No. And then through the town, because it's one of the towns that still does the running of the bulls, but it's like they have these permanent fences or gates.
Yeah, I don't know if they're permanent, because they weren't there the last time I went, but they were there at the moment, because I think they had just done the running of the bulls like the day before. But as we're getting into this town, it starts like the path. We're following the arrows, and we start getting almost corralled into these gates. And
where the bulls were running, just so they would, go in the right direction.
Yeah, so you almost felt like,
you were cattle.
And we kind of like made jokes about it as we were walking. But even like a couple pilgrims tried to get through these gates with their big packs. They couldn't get out. So It was kind of funny.
So we basically, we didn't want to stay there. It's just kind of didn't have the right feel of where we wanted to call it. No. And so we just stopped and had a bite to eat with Jacoby in this little cafe.
Yeah.
And then she ended up, I think she was looking for a store or something. And
I think I tried finding an ATM because I was out of cash or something like that. So we ended up getting separated from her, which later, we find out that she thought that we wanted to ditch her. And we're like, no, we didn't.
We just lost you.
Yeah, we just lost you.
We decided to keep going. We weren't sure where she was. We don't have phones, so...
No.
We just kept going.
Yeah, so we just started walking on.
And so we got to the end at Calzadilla and found this municipal albergue, which was a donativo or donation, where we had this unique hospitalero that had walked the Camino a number of times. I don't even know where he was originally from. I want to say New York or the East Coast somewhere, but he'd been away and just traveling and volunteering all over the world for the past, 2 decades.
He was a super interesting guy.
Yeah. Where he would go to, Costa Rica and volunteer at, a bird sanctuary or something for... he was just all over the place.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of great stories and tips and info and...
We ended up sitting down to dinner, just at their little main table there. It wasn't a big albergue, maybe only a dozen beds or so. And so we ended up eating dinner with John and the cheese lady. And then we met a gal from Germany. She was younger, maybe, in her late teens or early 20s. Her name was Christy, and she was from Germany. And then also another younger gal from Hong Kong. Her name was Connie. And she had a pretty interesting story of why she was walking.
Yeah, that's one that sticks with me too, because you meet people that walk for all different reasons. But basically, her reason for walking was that she had an apartment with like 5 or 6 cats or something, and her apartment burned down as well as burned up all of her pets.
Yeah, she lost all her
So she
animals.
lost all her cats that got burned up with the apartment, and it was basically she was walking to grieve or to,
let go
work
of
through
them.
it.
Yeah, for sure. It was a pretty sad story, and you felt for her, but, you're pretty glad that she was doing this for herself. Oh, I guess since we got separated from Jacoby, we didn't really know where she was at along the trail. We knew she was walking the same route that we were, but
she didn't end up staying at the albergue we were at.
No, so she was in the same town, but staying at a different albergue.
Which we found out, I think, the following day, but we didn't know at this point.
No, but apparently she had met this guy named Bill, and she said, was just quite the character and kind of a know-it-all and slightly chauvinistic and just very, oh no, yeah, I know totally what you're talking about. I know more than you, or just kind of like a one-upper. And she's just like, okay, dude.
Just knowing Jacoby, she has no tolerance or patience for any of that.
Nope, not at all. So
it was funny hearing about that.
It was pretty funny. So that night it just started pouring rain, and we didn't have any food, and they didn't offer any food at this small albergue. It was pretty, just simple, and you could go out to the local shop and buy something and then bring it back and cook it if you'd want. So we asked Gelato where the store was, and he kind of told us, and I think we ended up getting lost in this little town and not finding it easily.
It was raining, so we were kind of getting soaked as we were trying to find it, as well as it's not your typical store.
No.
I mean, there was no sign for it even.
No, it was basically a door.
It was basically trying to give directions to this one door that looked like someone's house, but you walked in and it was this little shop.
Yeah.
With this one little guy behind the counter that was basically selling, a few supplies.
Yeah,
but we did find it. Yeah, we just came out with some food and made our dinner back at the albergue.
And then, so the next day, this would have been day 22, we went from Casadilla to Mazilla de los Mulas, and that would have been 24.4 kilometers or 15.2 miles, so a little bit shorter of a day. We ran into Jacoby at lunch, and I remember I had this super delicious tortilla, which is basically a Spanish-style omelet, and it had tuna in it, and like fresh tomatoes on top, and yeah, I just remember that was super delicious. And we had made plans to meet her in the next town because we let her know that we didn't want to ditch her, and we liked her company, and we wanted to keep walking with her.
Because it's funny, because we kind of felt the same thing from earlier on, that we felt like she didn't like us at some point.
That's...
And so it was kind of a mutual
misunderstanding.
Yeah, once we were there at the end, we met Monica.
So we had heard a lot about this person named Monica, and we had met her very briefly once several stages back.
Back in Colorado.
Yeah, we didn't know that this was the Monica that we kept hearing about because Jacoby was telling us about her, John was telling us about her, and just how awesome she was. And we were like, oh, we want to meet this gal. And then finally we get to this albergue, and it's the one that Jacoby booked a night at, and Monica was there. So we finally got to meet Monica, which was cool.
Yeah, but the layout of the place was really nice as well. Again, it was one of those where it had a big grassy area with like a fountain, a lot of chairs and tables with umbrellas. So just sitting outside, and it was just enjoyable. They had like a bar, cafe sort of area. And then the sleeping area was up these stairs from the bar, where it's basically for pilgrims only, in just a big room.
It was a big open, like, loft type area. And there was a little wall that divided the loft in half into two sections. and there were bunks all along any wall that they could, fit a bunk bed on. But we got in, I think, one of the last two people, so we ended up having just 2 pads on the floor that they had left over that we could sleep on, which I prefer. Man.
I preferred it anyway,
I slept great on that pad on the floor. I'm glad I wasn't on a bunk.
There was no shaky bunkmate. There was no squeaking.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, it was comfy.
It was pretty nice.
So we checked in, and we basically got like a beer, and we're just hanging out outside, after washing our clothes for the day, packs off, our shoes off.
Right.
It was just a nice sunny day, journaling. Yeah, there was feet in the grass, just really pleasant, just hanging out. And we had met father and son who were from the States as well, Spencer and Steve, who we clicked with right away.
Yeah.
Really nice guys, super nice guys.
Super friendly, and just walking the Camino together, which they just kind of wanted to grow their relationship with one another.
Yeah, they wanted like a bonding experience.
Yeah, a cool bonding experience, which I totally respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had also met another guy named Santiago, who was from Spain.
He
just
was
this
a
little
character.
speed walker.
And he was
guy.
Awesome.
He was quite the character. But
he talked very fast and precise.
Yeah.
And he kept saying that it was his way.
Yeah,
this
because
is my
his
way.
name was Santiago.
Which is pretty
This is my way.
He said that he had never walked it before, but he lived in the area and would drive it frequently.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. But yeah, so we all went out to dinner with one another, got to know each other a little bit better, and just had a good old time, a good night.
Okay, so, and then after dinner, as we were heading back to the albergue, we noticed a herd of goats.
Yeah.
And they were just walking down the street, but there was one goat in particular in the back that was kind of limping.
He was like totally trugging along.
And we just all looked at each other, and I think we all collectively thought the same thing. And like, this goat must be walking the Camino, because that's how we're all walking too.
Yeah.
So we kind of dubbed it the Pilgrim Swagger, which was once you're done walking for the day and you sit down and your muscles have a chance to relax, and it's almost like it doesn't take long. It's like 30 minutes and everything starts to stiffen up.
Tenses up.
And you don't notice it at first, but once you get up again is when you're like, oh my God, I'm sore, and nothing wants to move, and now everything hurts. And so it's a bit of a rough start, and you feel like the Tin Man that needs oil as you're kind of like warming up your muscles again.
Yeah. It's like starting an old car. I think you gave it that analogy, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. It's just, it takes a while, and it's like, and that's how you feel, is just like, oh my God, yeah, I need to warm up. I need to start moving again for my body to feel like it can function, because otherwise it's just like, oh my God, I'm sore.
So you're a bit rigid and limpy.
Limpy. I was thinking like limpy.
No, but like, yeah, just a bit rigid and stiff.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how this goat looked, and he was just like, he's one of us. And
I think, it was kind of one of those walks back to the albergue.
Yeah.
We get up the stairs in the albergue. That was another kind of pilgrim swagger moment. But we get to the top loft area, and we get ready for bed. And so, the lights go out. Most pilgrims are in their bunks and sound asleep, and some are snoring, making, kind of funny noises or whatever. And I remember I had woken up in the middle of the night, I think it was like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And this never happens to me, but I had the sudden urge to poo. All of a sudden, it was like, bam, you gotta go poo. And I'm like, what? I've had it, maybe I have to pee or something, but this was like, oh, nope, you're gonna poop now. And so I head into the bathroom, and the bathrooms they were more open than normal. I think they might have had a glass door, but you could hear everything out in this very open loft. And so I get in there, and one thing that Spain does really well, and I think it's a great, idea, but to conserve energy, all their bathrooms have a censored light. So if you're not in there moving, the light's just going to shut down, which is great. Great way to conserve energy. However, when you are going poop in the middle of the night and you get into the stall and the sensor cannot see you in the stall, the light turns out and you're like, oh, well, now I'm just pooping in darkness. Another weird thing so it wasn't just creepy, just being in the dark, but there was somebody, I think there was a other pilgrim, an older man, that had gone to the bathroom to go pee at the same time. And then there was also another pilgrim that was snoring, but not just snoring, they sounded like a zombie. And so I hear somebody walking around to get to the other bathroom, and then also this zombie sound, and I'm like frantically waving my arms around to try to get this light to shine back on because I'm thoroughly creeped out at this point. I thought I was in the middle of a zombie apocalypse while pooping, and I had no control. I'm just glad that there was toilet paper in the stall, so that was quite the experience.
Yeah, so we woke up the next morning and Whit had, shared her story of the night before.
It was scary.
So, yeah, we basically headed downstairs and got some breakfast at the cafe there. We had a bit of a late start, which we didn't leave until after 9 o'clock. This would have been our walk into León, which was the day 23. And a bit of a shorter day. It was only 18.1K or 11.2 miles. So yeah, it was a bit of a shorter walk, but we had a late start and not like time was that pressing at that point, so it was okay.
No, yeah. We decided to walk into León, even though Jacoby and Monica had said that they had heard that the walk into that city was along mostly roadway and can get kind of dangerous because of traffic. So they decided to skip that section and they took a bus into town, which was fine by us, but Carl and I, being the stubborn fuckers that we are, were like, hell no, we're not taking no bus. We
hadn't taken any form of transportation.
Yeah, we wanted to walk every step of that Camino.
About to stop now.
So we had gotten into town a little bit later, and it was along the road a lot. However, I didn't feel like it was dangerous in any way. So
no, I don't know where that came from.
I think it was just people telling, hey,
It's like you hear one
out.
thing and then it gets telephoned down the line and it's just this big ordeal, which it's really not that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, as we were coming into the town, we decided to stop for a bite to eat at this bar called the Scorpios Bar. And we had some of the best food or tapas and beer that we had in a long time.
It was so good.
It was so good. There was like these calamari rings. And then the other thing we had were these potatoes, but it was in this like creamy, kind of garlicky and spicy sauce.
It was patatas bravas.
Oh my God, they were so good there, though. It's like you can get the same thing everywhere, but they're going to be a little different. Mm-hmm. But this place just...
They did it right.
They did it right. It was so good. As well as the beer that they poured, it was just...
Oh, so crisp and fresh.
It was really clean and
super
crisp.
Cold.
Oh my God, it was such a good stop.
Yeah, we were in heaven. But yeah, we stayed at another nunnery.
Another whorehouse.
Again, not a brothel. They had a super early curfew, we remembered, and it was 9 p.m., and that's literally about the time that people start going out.
Yeah, it's still light outside.
Oh, yeah.
And that was just the rule, though. I mean, I get it, but it does kind of suck.
Oh, totally.
If you're in a place where, if you want to stay out.
Yeah. So we probably would have done that a bit differently. But, yeah.
But the place was nice. Again, the nuns were super friendly and very welcoming. And, yeah, after we checked in and showered and, cleaned up and everything, we went out to the town, or at least to, like, the old quarter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The old town or whatever, which is usually, like, the center of town.
Mm-hmm.
And we had met up with Gemma and then her friends David and Amber that had, met up with her.
It was less awkward this time.
Yeah,
so it was
this
nice
time it was a lot better. I think they had
gotten used to one another.
Gotten accustomed to everything.
Yeah, for sure. So it was more comfortable. And we got to know Amber and David, and they're super friendly people and just really nice. And we had some good conversations with them. We heard that Amber was having some issues with her feet.
Yeah, she was getting a lot of blisters. Right?
Yeah, pretty bad. So she ended up having to bus a bit of the way too, it sucked, hearing that, because you don't want anybody to suffer. And she was just so sweet. And it was unfortunate that she had to deal with that. We also met a gal from Australia. Her name was Steph. And she was from Melbourne, and she was super, super nice and also just kind of a badass. She was traveling a lot by herself. And so I think this was one of the first gals that I had met who was doing some long-term backpacking, but on her own. And so it was pretty cool to hear her just perspective about traveling solo as a woman. So that was pretty cool. But then also we also met a guy named Marco, and he was from Italy, and he was walking the French way of the Camino for the 4th time. Yeah. And he was saying that he is in love with this way, and he literally doesn't see any need to walk other routes, because every single time you walk this, it's going to be different. And he says, in particular, because of the people that you meet along the way, make it different. Because the stages are going to be the same. The distance never changes. The scenery is the same, but
it's who you meet.
Yeah,
that makes it unique and special in its own way.
Yeah, later we come to find that out, that really that way is so special because of the connections and the friendships that you make.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had made our way towards the center of León then, and had checked out the cathedral, which basically the center or old town of the area, with all these narrow little winding streets.
It was super quaint.
Super cool. I mean, there's little shops and restaurants just everywhere, and little alleyways and drawbacks and
cute pubs, and
it's just so cool just to wander around. And it's easy to get lost because it's not like a 90-degree by 90 grid. It's just everything kind of wandered every which way, like a ant colony or something.
You run into the cathedral and it's breathtaking, and
which
then
pops out of nowhere because of the
and then there's like a Gaudi building you pass, and it's just very
really liked it.
The personality of this city we really dug.
So I mean, we were all going to leave the next morning, but it was one of the few places where we wish we had an extra day to stay. We wanted to stay out that night too, but we had this curfew as well.
Yeah, because there was Gemma, David, Amber, Monica, Jacoby, and we were all enjoying a really nice time visiting with them and
just hanging out,
enjoying the night. And
we were outside of a bar, just at this table, and we were just getting tapas, having beer and wine.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it's almost 9. We're like, fuck!
And people are starting to come out to go out for the night.
It's starting to get lively, and here...
Like, well, we gotta go to bed.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna go to bed now. See ya.
I think we even pushed the curfew a little bit.
We did. We ran back to the nunnery.
Yeah. It's like, well, we have to just 10 more minutes. We wanted to milk every second we had.
We really did. Yeah, we stayed out as late as we could.
Town.
Yeah, and Jacoby didn't even come back. She stayed in Monica's hotel.
Yeah, that's right.
I was like, you lucky bitch. It was great, though.
But we'll be back one day. But yeah, we definitely recommend León. Sure. It was a really cool city.
Even if you don't want to walk the Camino, just go there. It's an awesome city.
Yeah, I could go back just to go there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps up this leg of the Camino.
Yeah, we made it to León. So next time we'll be going from there.
And just thanks for listening and coming along on this journey with us.
We got a lot more stories to come, so stay tuned.
All right. Thanks, guys.
If you liked what you heard, subscribe to our podcast.
If you feel inclined, leave us a comment or review. Tell someone you know who might enjoy to have a listen. and feel free to share on your choice of social media.
If you want to know more about us or see any photos of our travels, you can check out our website at trailofbeans.com.
We also have a Facebook page where you can follow us on our upcoming adventures and get updates along the way, which can be found by searching @The Bean Trail.
We'll be back next week. Same beans,
same podcast.